So this recovery, I'm not sure who this was. I was just driving by and I happened to see that they were already hooked up. So I decided to start recording, but he's using a tow strap. Typically with the tow strap, you don't want to yank them in the way that he did. You want to get the tow strap tight and pull them gently. Yanking them in that way puts a lot of strain on the vehicle, the hookup points, and everything. So if you do need to yank somebody like that, you definitely want to use a kinetic rope of some sort. We recommend the Freedom ropes here just because the owners, Danny and Leah, are local and they contribute some of their proceeds to trying to help save the Oceano dunes from closing. Wait for them to get hooked back up and see what's going on. So at this point, he pulled them a little bit more gently. It looked like from the discussion that they were having, he's going to pull them all the way back to the entrance. So that's what he's doing currently. So this guy that got stuck, he was at street pressure, 36 PSI, two-wheel drive on the Suburban, and there was no front recovery points. I don't believe that he had the factory G80 rear locker, or the government locker as they call it. You can see the one wheel spinning that doesn't have any traction on the rear driver's side. If he had the factory G80 locker, that wouldn't be the case. The way that it works is once it detects a little bit of wheel spin on one side and not the other, it automatically engages the locking mechanism. So we popped him out at this point, but because he was at street pressure, he dug himself back in again, so giving him a little bit more pull. Another thing worth mentioning is you always want to connect to a recovery point that's rated for recovery. In this case, I always carry an extra hitch receiver that has a D-ring, so that way I can hook up to it. I hook up to it with a soft shackle, then my Freedom rope, then another soft shackle on my end. And then just some words of advice in case you're ever being recovered by anybody. You want to try your best not to run over the recovery rope. And if you do run it over, try your best not to hit the gas while your wheel's spinning on top of it. So at this point, we're basically discussing what our options are. It doesn't really look like it from what you can see in the video, but there's about a 2-foot drop on the ledge right there. And that's the way that the beach is now after all the storms that's been happening. So I'm trying to get him into a position to where he can drive on his own and not have to go down that ledge, but there's not a whole lot of room to work with. So I'm trying to figure out if facing him toward the entrance or facing him the other way is the best way to go. So we decided to pull him this way, and once we disconnect, he's going to go straight, and there's a little area where there's a little bit of a ramp going down. So we determined that was probably the best route at this point. So at this point, I noticed he made it down the little 2-foot drop, but I did see that it looked like he stopped and lost his momentum and then dug back in down on the hard pack. So I let him know that basically at this point we needed to air down. So I had my rapid deflator and I aired him down to 20 PSI in the back. We still couldn't get him going, so I'm giving him another little tug just to get him out and then get him on down where the sand is a little bit darker so that way he can get his momentum and make it out to the entrance. He mentioned that they were leaving right after this, so normally I would have hooked up to the front and I just would have pulled him all the way to the entrance since it wasn't that far, but there wasn't any hookup points in the front, so that's why we decided to air down. If you're ever in the area and you need to air back up, you can go to Chevron on Grand, and they give free air at every gas pump. And then while I was helping that other gentleman, this guy in this truck here, he came up and asked if I could help him as well. I guess he dug himself in. It's also rear-wheel drive and aired up. He was up to about 31 to 36 psi. One tire was 31, the other was 36. So I told him I had to air him down. So we took his back down to 20 psi. I told him about the chevron as well, so he could air back up. And then we were going to let him try to reverse and see if he could rock himself out without having to give him a tug.
I would, yeah.
Just some words of advice for everyone. If you're going to be driving down on the sand, even if it's down on the hard pack, it's best to air down to at least 20 psi. If you're going further in the back, I mean, you can go down to 15 or 13 or even lower if you need to. Four-wheel drive definitely helps.